Hi everyone, welcome to Wigan Fan TV. It's a bit of a special episode tonight. We're going to catch up with Phil Wilkinson from the Wigan Observer. Phil, are you well?
Yeah, good, thanks. You?
Yeah, very well, thank you. We were going to do this show at some point last week, and we were hoping that maybe all the rumours and Sam Tomkins issue might have been resolved by the time we actually did it, but it hasn't been. And guess what? Most of the questions that are coming through from people are obviously about the Sam Tomkins issue.
All about Sam.
It's all about Sam at this moment in time. If you've got any questions for Phil, please pop them into the comments section. The comments do seem to be working this week, but if you are watching in a group, we won't actually see your name. But if you're watching on the page, we will see your name, and we'll put as many questions to Phil.
You're presuming they're not all Liverpool fans watching the football right now.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell I'm not a Liverpool fan. That's why I'm doing it tonight. Let's try and draw a line as much as we can at the start of the show about Sam Tomkins. Do you want to just bring us up to date with sort of the definitive scenario as far as you're concerned, Phil?
Yeah, look, nothing's changed. Yeah, as far as actually, before I start, can I just say that my wife's due back shortly, and I've got the kids in the house. So if you see any kids nipping in the background like that BBC clip, it might well happen. Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, nothing's changed. I still expect Sam Tomkins to be at Catalan next year. I mean, if we just go off, we know for a fact, forget what sources have said and what we're told. Yeah. Even if we just go off what we know that Bernard Gorshi said be wanted next year. We know Bernard Gorshi said Sam Tomkins wants to come to France next year. And we know that Sam Tomkins won't comment about it. You know, he wouldn't on the touchscreen on Friday. I mean, I grabbed him after the game on Friday and just said, can you speak? And he was very polite, Sam, and he just said, yeah, I'm more than happy to do an interview, but I'm not going to talk about that. Yeah. And I said, well, he said, I'm no comment about that. So I said, well, mate, I'll just leave it then if it's okay, because I can't really interview you and not ask you about your future. So, which I understand, fair enough. I'm glad he's still speaking and everything. I think it's just a case of waiting for it to be, either waiting for it to be tied up or waiting for it to be announced. Okay. We're waiting to know which of these two it is, but I think if you're offering odds, mate, I still put money on Sam Tomkins being at Catalan next year. I thought what Bernard said was interesting as well. He said that, and it was something that a lot of people kind of hadn't considered, and it was the fact that he wants to live in France. I mean, yeah, you know, if you're 30 early next year, you've got two young kids, a wife in January, I think they get married. Why would you not want to live in? I mean, there's worse places to live.
Exactly. I mean, that's a discussion that we had with Matt, who's watching a couple of weeks ago, and I said, you know, me and Sam Tomkins, I think, were the same age, we're a couple of months apart. I'm expecting my first baby in the summer, and if somebody offered me a contract that would have 4 years to run rather than 1 year, and £1 million potentially over the 4 years to live in the south of France, that's a big thing, isn't it?
I have heard different things. I've not got to the bottom of this about the tax incentives for athletes playing over there, or whether it's just athletes who retire over there. There's a similar thing in Ireland. I don't know if that's just for home players or not, but I'm going to try and get to the bottom of that. Yeah, and then, you know, it's just a case of wait and see. But just because I've been getting a few questions these last few days about, is there a problem? Is there the fact that there's nothing been announced? Does that mean there's a problem here? Has there been a U-turn? People are saying, what at Warrington or Castleford? And I think people are just speculating because there's been a delay. But if you remember, look, one of four things could be happening here. One, we're all completely wrong, and Sam Tomkins stays. But even if you look at what's been said on the record, that looks incredibly unlikely. Secondly, it's not yet been tied up. And if you remember with Anthony Gelling and Mickey McLaurin, we all knew what was happening around Christmas time, but it wasn't announced until into the new year. And a few people were like, oh, why are Wigan dragging it on? And I spoke to Chris Radlinski at the start of the year, and he insisted, he said, look, it just, these things just dragged on, you know, release clauses and things like that. It's not that there was a problem, but they can't announce it until it is all signed, sealed, delivered. Third thing, you know, you look at the last time Sam left, Wigan waited until they could be announced Matthew Bowen at the same time. Again, we all knew that he was going to the New Zealand Warriors. It was no surprise that. It was just they confirmed it. A piece of good news, I guess, to almost soften the blow. Yeah. And there is that prospect, whether they're trying to get Bateman re-signed, whether they're going to wait until maybe the Zach Hardacre issue is resolved and confirm his capture. Maybe that's something they're looking at doing. And the other four possibilities, they're just waiting for a better time themselves. If you remember at the end of 2016, it got a bit embarrassing, didn't it? Matty Smith kind of sidestepping the issues about him joining St Helens, and I'm here until someone tells me otherwise. Then as soon as he signed, I think it was October the 11th, it was announced a week after the grand final. And in his first interview, he said, "Oh, it's been done for months, but the club's asked me not to release it, not to say anything." So it's, you know, I mean, it might be one of those issues. As I say, it could be any one of those four. At the start, when the issues started rumbling, I was inclined to think it was more that it hadn't yet been finalised. Maybe they're just waiting until the end of next week. Maybe Thursday is the date when players who are off contract this year can start signing for clubs for the following season. I believe, unless that's changed. So maybe they're just waiting until then. It's unfeasible that they would wait until. I had a theory that it's not unlikely, is it, that Catalan need to beat Wigan at the DW, the last game before the Super 8s, to avoid the bottom four. And I thought, I wonder if they're just going to wait until the end of that just to avoid a conflict of interest story, you know. But I think the cat's in the bag now. I think it would be unfeasible to wait that long.
I mean, we've obviously had lots of good news in the past week, and I think it's important to talk about that good news as well in terms of the contract signing. There's still lots of up in the air as well about contracts that may get signed, and we'll perhaps discuss that later on. What are your thoughts on the contracts that have been re-signed in terms of, you know, Isa and Navarrete, you would say? Well
earned. And the thing as well about Tom Davis and Liam Marshall is when, for example, Frank Paul leaves and everyone says, "Oh, we've got money now to sign a player," you've got to say, no, not always, because you can't presume these young players are going to be on the same kind of contract that they're on. You know what I mean? Every single year, they're going to get upgrades, and that eats in a lot of it, because we're going to get a lot of players under 29. Usually, your players up to about 29, 30, they get paid more each year. From 30 onwards, that's when the contracts usually start decreasing, just as a rule. We're going to, of course, have a younger squad, so we get a lot of players who are getting contract increases, often year on year. So that's where the money goes. In terms of the others, I mean, Willie Isa, I was unsure until the start of the season. When I saw him play at the start of this year, I thought, he deserves a new contract. Roman Navarrete as well, I think he's proved. The difficult thing with this is, because you don't know the figures involved as well, though, it's hard to make a definite call on what's a good signing, what's I mean, Chris
Radlinski's job at this moment in time, trying to balance the books, if you like, it's just mission impossible, because you're not going to please everyone. You know, that's the big
part of you would love to do it in a football manager's point of view, but part of you would hate to do it as well, because his maths must be pretty good. It is hard, because you've still got obviously Gildart, Sutton, you know, and you don't know what's happening with Sean O'Loughlin and Thomas Luluai. It's unfeasible that they join another club. But you don't know what's happening with those two players as well. Obviously, there's a Sam issue that's rumbling on. I'm kind of glad that they've signed those players. I'm really glad they've upgraded the contracts of Marshall and Davies. I just think it says a lot about what the club wants to do. I'll be honest, mate, I don't get as stressed about the contracts and the signings as everyone else. And I'm not. But I understand why people do.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, personally, I'd love Oliver Gildart to stay. I think he's a terrific talent. I've spoken to him. He's unsure himself what he wants to do. I spoke to him on Friday. West Tigers and St Helens are interested in him. How interested they are, you know, we'll have to wait and find out. How keen Wigan are to keep him, we'll have to wait and find out. You know, we don't know. He wants to move to Australia. If I was advising him, I'd say maybe hang on a couple of years, establish yourself as an England international, develop here, and then have a crack when you're 23 years old. I think that would be a more sensible choice. But
it's a difficult one, I think, as a fan, to see Gildart at St Helens, isn't it? It's a bitter pill to swallow to imagine that, and you know, to see him at West Tigers would perhaps be the lesser of two evils. But I think you're right. You know, he's still very, very young. You know, he broke into the first team very young. I mean, this is something that I meant to ask you a long time ago to have a look at. I can only find his contract renewal 4 years ago now, before he'd even broken into the first team. Now, it makes sense with what you're saying, where the younger players get maybe an increase every year. But I can only see news of a new contract 4 years ago when he hadn't even broken into the first team. So he might still be on.
2015, I think I read that 2015 he signed a new contract which runs until the end of this year. But you got to remember a couple of times there are these ones, especially when it's a fringe player, that we took out an option on Willie Isa's contract that was never officially confirmed.
Okay.
For no reason. I think they just. I mean, if you put out something now, it probably just looked like overkill, wouldn't it? Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, look, in an ideal world, I'd love to keep Oliver. I think Ryan Sutton's mind might be made up, and he wants to crack at the NRL. Good luck to him. Yeah. Oliver Gildart, I think in an ideal world, I personally, I'd like to keep him. But again, the factors that you got to put in then is Zach Hardacre. You know, we don't know. That's the big unknown in all this is when that Zach Hardacre case is going to be resolved and which way they lean. There's obviously rumours that he might get a year instead of 2 years. But you know, they can be as confident as you want, or Zach can be, or the rumours can be as strong as that. But you're dealing with UCAD here, you know. You're not dealing with a rugby league body, so it's hard to predict what they're going to do. If and when he comes in, where's he going to play, centre or fullback? Yeah, and then you've got issues as well that yes, Sam leaves, but what if Tommy Luluai decides he wants to retire? So Powell plays more hooker, so Escarayan plays a bit more half. So there's a lot of. It's not just a kick. You mentioned before about it's a pretty tough job. There's a lot of unknowns here as well.
I mean, what I've been saying on the show, and I think I might have put it even in the 18th man column for yourself the other week, is the pieces just don't fit into this puzzle, unfortunately. You know, and you've got to get some of these pieces to one side, and the biggest piece is Sam Tomkins, unfortunately.
I mean, yeah. The thing about Wayne is, though, as long as he gets quality players and he's not too bothered. So I do think it's possible to retain, you know, for Tommy to stay on, Escarayan to play fullback, Hardacre and Gildart being in that squad. I do see that as a possibility, and I do think Wigan will try and keep him. It's just I guess you don't know the numbers involved, and as I say, you don't really know the motivations of the player.
We'll maybe come back and touch on some of the rumours, and people are asking lots of questions about the rumours. I mean, I guess the last one, maybe before we perhaps touch on him later, is Bateman. I know you've spoken to him over the past few weeks. Any clearer, or do you think he's still umming and ahhing?
I think he's still weighing it up. Yeah, I think he's still weighing it up. I mean, if I was I've not been told this. This is just me saying. If I was a betting man, I'd bet on him staying. I think he. Ties to his daughter and everything else, and Wigan might be in a position to upgrade his contract. I mean, I think he would be inclined to stay. But if he did decide to go, I'd still be quite surprised if he went at the end of this year, because remember, he is under contract for next year. And if he goes at the end of this year, the NRL club have to pay a transfer fee. Now, Ian Lenigan or Rads have never said what that is, but we can only imagine a player of his calibre for 1 year is pretty substantial. When you look at the figures that players like Joe Westerman went for, you're going to guess that John Bateman would be a six-figure, or close to a six-figure sum for 1 year. So, and to be honest, the stock of English players going over to the NRL has took a bit of a hit recently, hasn't it, as well? So I'm sure Bateman wouldn't be short of offers. I'm sure they'd have him fighting for him. But whether they'd be willing to pay a transfer fee for him just to get him 9 months, 12 months early, I'm not too. We'll have to wait and see.
I mean, Sam's obviously in fantastic form and has got to be close to getting a recall to that England squad, because he is a better.
That's the big thing, isn't it?
He's the best fullback in England at this moment in time, bar Barber. Yeah. I mean, the best English fullback by a country mile, and I think you wrote about that the other day. But you look at the sort of cold hard facts of it. You've got Bateman, who's a current international who needs a new skill, and you've got Tomkins. So it is such a difficult thing to weigh up. We're going to sort of.
I just say no, man. The only thing I'd say about the signings is I think it's for recent history. It's just told me not to get too stressed about it, because I remember when Sam went to the NRL, and I think I might have been one of those doomsdayers saying, not Super League's doomed, but Super League's going to take a massive hit here. Yeah. And it didn't. And I still enjoyed Wigan the year later with Matty Bowen there, and he still had some success.
That's the grand final every year.
Yeah, it does. So this continued level of success, whoever's there, you know, Pat Richards goes and everyone's crying, and then, who's Joe Burgess? I think they've earned that right to have, or trust, I suppose. And certainly my confidence. So whether, you know, Gildart is one of my favourite players, whether he stays or goes, I'm pretty sure, I'm confident and comfortable that they'll make the right choices.
Yeah, I honestly think with Gildart, I think a lot of people would understand if he went to West Tigers because of everything that seems to happen. It's the St Helens thing that's really, really difficult. Yeah. It's that he causes sleepless nights already.
He's 21, and people forget that. I mean, this fringe player is not even nowhere near as accomplished as he is. He's 21 years old, and he's not the finished product yet. I mean, physically, he doesn't quite look the finished product yet. But I'd be surprised if there weren't more Super League clubs after him. But St Helens, they already have a pretty good left centre in Mark Percival. Maybe Percival can play on the right side and Gildart can come in the left. We'll have to wait and see how strong their interest is. But whether it's St Helens or not, I wouldn't be surprised if a few other clubs were interested in him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one question that came up, I can't see it on here. I think it was on a previous post, which I thought was interesting, a completely different topic. And I know off air you said that you wrote about this in the off season at some point. Was attendances. Now, on Friday night, the attendance was around about 11,000, which for being such a Wigan were marketing it as a grudge game. It was a really, really hot day on a Friday night against the league leaders from last year. Pretty poor attendance, really. What are your thoughts on I can't remember the gentleman who said it before, but the attendances?
I mean, they're not actually declining. If you look at the last 3 years, I think they've increased. I mean, last year's average, that last game against Castleford was an almost exceptional crowd of 15,000 last year. And we remember, let's not talk about what happened on the pitch. But it did bump up the average to about 13,700, which was an increase on the year before, which increased on the year before. You've got to factor in, of course, whether you got Saints on a Good Friday that year or not, and who you're going to get in the Super 8s and that. So so really, you could look at it and probably say the attendances for the last 3 years have been about average. They did take a hit, didn't they? I mean, they were pretty big in Michael Maguire's first couple of years, and then they took a slump, and then they took another slump again, I think, when the Super 8 system came in, and Ian Lenigan's...
Do you think that is the format or the style?
Yeah, he thinks so. He is convinced as much. He's been very quiet recently because him and Adam Pearsons and whatever are doing a lot of the talks behind the scenes about the structure and the future of the Super League competition. Yeah. So he's not giving interviews right now, but he's been very vocal in the past, and he is convinced that the Super 8 structure has just... Yeah, it does. It has a knock-on effect that, with season ticket sales, you don't know who you're going to get when in the summer holidays, and he thinks that is a factor. For this year, personally, I mean, I didn't want to say it at the start of the year, but we do these pro rata season tickets, and I was looking at the home fixtures coming up, and I thought, well, the first game's against Hulls in Australia, and then you've got Huddersfield, Hull KR, Widnes. And I thought, you might as well just get one of these pro rata season tickets and save yourself 80 quid at the start of the year here and start watching from Castleford, because obviously the weather's a lot warmer. And these are next home games. Salford's I think that'll be a great home game, but it's not really a glamour tie. A lot of the big fixtures for Wigan are stockpiled in June, July, aren't they?
Yeah.
So
it's an interesting point, though. I mean, it's probably something that the club are aware of, but I guess you're not the only person that's thought about that as well. And we might start to see those attendances creep up in the summer months.
Wigan's do okay, but I mean, another thing in the last 3 years, you've had the Thursday night TV, haven't you? Which we kind of accept as you get into bed with Sky, they're going to steal the covers, but and fart on the room, but. We take their money. You've got to, I guess, accept that at times. But that is definitely a factor. I mean, the Saints game is July 19th, isn't it? That's a Thursday night, so it's definitely a factor. The Thursday night crowds, and just touching on Sam Tomkins, I just mentioned then, actually, just reminded me about the structure. That's the big unknown for me. That's the most interesting question in all of this is. Surely we've got this late down the season now. All the word is next year will be the same structure as this. So it'll be a Super 8 system next year. Any major change will be from 2020 on, even if it's to franchising or an expansion or a 2 sets of 10s. So I want to know whether, is it just blind faith that he would join Catalan even if they're being relegated? Or does he know
there's some kind of assurance?
Yeah, some kind of assurance that even if they're relegated this year, they've been assured that they'll be in Super League in 2020 and it'll be a franchise type system. That's the big unknown in all of that for me, because you're talking about any of those clubs who go down into that qualifiers this year, you'd have to be worried, wouldn't you, given the quality of the teams at the top of that championship.
Two other things to sort of quickly talk about, Phil, is I mean, I don't know how much of one of these you've seen, but have you seen the Frank Paul Nuasala issues? I mean, what do you think of that? I mean, first of all, just to bring everybody up to date, there was this strange Instagram post from Mrs. Nuasala, sort of, I mean, she wasn't necessarily accusing Wigan staff of racist behaviour. She was very coy with a comma, I think, which sort of separates.
There was a full stop separating that, whereas that this has been over his career, full stop, and then I mean, as soon as she said a terrible country, I just lost. She'd lost all respect for me. I've no interest in what she said.
But then that's been backed up today with the article. I think it was over in Australia, an interview that Frank said that. Yeah, it's strange because he said basically he wanted to be released, but then Wigan wouldn't release him, but like it was straight. Like, what does he expect from the club? You know,
I'm pretty sure we're going to have to pay him a release. Wigan still paid him off. I'm pretty sure we did. So not much, but something. So I don't know whether, you know. Of course, he's on a contracted. Look, it doesn't. If he was a contracted player and he wasn't any good, which you could argue he was a contracted player who wasn't any good, and Wigan just decided to bin him off, I'd have backed Frank Paul Nuasala all the way and said, listen, you've got a contract there. You're turning up what they pay you. You know what I mean? They made a bad call on a player, but you've got that contract. So the other way around, though, if Frank Paul Nuasala wants to release him, Wigan want to retain him, of course we're going to... his words were Wigan played hardball on it, but I'm not convinced about that. I mean...
Hardball being the key term then, because he certainly wasn't the wrecking ball or a hardball, was he?
Do you know what? I did. The comments caught a couple by surprise because he left genuinely on good terms with the players and the staff. Now, whether he's almost said this, listen, I'm not speculating this, but whether he said this because his missus has said it, and I don't know whether. My best guess would be a journalist has seen Mrs. Nuasala's post.
Yeah.
So gone to him, because he played for the Roosters at the weekend, didn't he?
Yeah,
gone to him in the sheds afterwards and asked him specifically about it. And so he's between a, you know.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody's watching and wants a signed Frank Paul Nuasala heritage shirt, there's one framed upstairs, which is one of the worst things I've ever bought from the club. The Wigan Warriors Foundation certainly got the best deal out of that, I think. I
can hand on heart say that I can't recall any instances of players. I honestly can't think of any who left with this management on sour terms like that, you know. So it's not a trend.
No, the thing that struck me as being false, and you know, my involvement with the club is solely as a fan, but it was almost the accusation in the Frank Paul interview. That sort of said that they didn't treat his family well. Now, for me, what I've seen of the families around Wigan, I mean, it's a family club. You know, Sean Wayne treats everybody as his family, as far as I can tell. And
they didn't come back in the winter. They stayed in Australia. So I don't know what he expected them to do while they were over there. Yeah. And as I think you pointed out, or somebody pointed out, that she had a similar kind of rant when he left Canberra for England. You know, leave Canberra behind. I think she's got previous on this.
I had a theory after he didn't come back that basically he came back for pre-season to get a good pre-season under himself and get a free trip back out to Australia for the whole game, and had no intention of coming back. Let Wigan pay for his airfare over to Australia, and he saved a little bit of money. There's another strange story that took place in McDonald's in Hull this week. Albert Kelly. Strange one. Thoughts on that? And the fact that Hull have said that he's fine to play this week as well.
Awful. Two Aussie journalists who live over here, Steve Mascott, who's been on this as well with you. And in fact, is that launch still on, by the way? Because he's sleeping here that night, if it is.
Yes, the launch. So
he'll be messing up this couch in about a month, in a couple of weeks' time. Right. Mascott and John Davidson, they've been surprised, and I have as well, really, about the lack of media interest it took over here. The Daily Mail website only picked it up because the Australian Daily Mail picked it up and they ran it. But the whole Daily Mail didn't have anything on it until today. They've done a follow-up on it. And yeah, I'm surprised even like the league websites haven't really touched it, you know, the rugby leagues and the total RL, unless they have and I've missed it. I'm surprised about that.
I mean, is there
a journalist asked me.
From your
No,
point of view?
not at all. No, it's got.
Going to run with a story.
If we were on news desk and a girl, no, we'd have run that. Absolutely. Look, we ran the story when all the reports came in about John Bateman, and we didn't have a video with that. You know, that's a legal issue because you've no proof. That's where you can get them for libel. You've got a video here. Yes, the video doesn't show everything, which is for me the reason they should have been more open about it. You know, nobody really thinks that the Jamie Carragher incident started the minute that he wound the window down and said, "Hey, 2-1." You know, there's obviously something happened before it, which we didn't know about. But it doesn't. I can't think of anything that a sober member of staff in McDonald's, could have said to him, which justifies what he said back. Yeah. But if I'm wrong, I'd be more than happy for Albert Kelly to explain it. And if he wants to apologise, apologise. Look, it's not for me to tell the other reporters what's a story and what's not a story. Yeah, if that was Wigan, yes, we'd have run it. And would Wigan have minded? You know what? I was thinking about this. Probably the PR people and the corporate people and maybe the ones at the top, they wouldn't have wanted the story run. But do you know what? I can't help wonder whether Sean Wayne would have wanted the story run, because he would have wanted a senior player like that shamed and let the young players know that we will not accept that kind of culture. And he'd want them and all the people to know what kind of punishment he's got. I really, really like Lee Radford. He's one of my favourite coaches. I think on this he's made a big mistake because he's kept it all internal. They've not revealed what punishment he's got. We know he is available to play against, I think it's Catalan this weekend. Yeah, they've handled it all wrong, Hull. And another one who should have handled this better is the RFL. I beg your pardon. You know, you just want a governing body to govern, don't you? And even if you just said we're aware of it, we're just investigate it, look into it.
You just mentioned the FA there, but imagine if this was. Straight away, you know, there would be a statement out.
Completely. If this was the other way around as well, if this was somebody in McDonald's saying this, a worker, an employee in McDonald's saying this to a customer, guarantee McDonald's would give a statement. Guarantee McDonald's would discipline that person, and you'd know what that problem was. The RFL have just come out of this completely looking. It's, you know, they talk up women's involvement in Rugby League and the Super League, and it is. It's just really, really poor. Yeah. They want all this attention. They want the publicity, and they crave it, and they can't handle that responsibility that comes with it. It's really, really poor.
I'm going to finish, Phil, by doing what I normally do, which is giving the last word to Matt, who comes onto this show. Now, Matt's last word is normally a poem. Now, I'm not expecting a poem as an answer to this, but he's put a really good question here that is a complete curveball, I think. But if there was one thing Wigan could copy from the way any other Super League club operates, what would it be? Now, that's a tough question to put to you without any preparation, but see what you think. Yeah, I'm
trying to think who does it. Yeah, I'll take the obvious simple answer here is a couple of weeks ago at Catalan there were beer in the press room. So there you go. That would be my obvious answer. No, I mean in terms of press access, I think Wigan, from my job's point of view, Wigan do a pretty good. They do a good job. You know, if somebody doesn't want to speak to you, they'll have to tell you to your face. You can speak to anyone you want, really. There's only really Leeds who do as good a job as Wigan on that front, in my opinion. But in terms of what they copy, the other way they operate, yeah, man, it's a tough one, isn't it?
I mean, talking about the Catalans one, I mean, the thing that I think a lot of Wigan fans get stung with of Catalan is changing your money into the special Catalan Dragons money, and then once you've changed it into their Monopoly money, yeah, and then you can't do anything with it.
That token counting thing. I know, it's ridiculous, isn't it? And really we had a shocker this year because we were on the trains and the trains were on strike, so we had to go on. It was like a hitchhiker's website to get us from Perpignan to Carcassonne Airport on the Monday morning. And
somebody asked you that question before, didn't they?
Yeah, we did. We were telling them in the pub, and it's funny to look back on, but I'm not kidding. We were nervous. I tell you what, the hospitality of the Catalan though was great. The press guy there and the journalist at the Independent, they both said, any problems, give me a call. We'll drive you to Carcassonne Airport.
Nice.
Yeah. Nice. In terms of that, though, yeah, it's a good one. I can't think of one because, and I'd tell you if I thought there was one, like the reserves is a big, passionate one for me. And we're going to, there's only Wigan and Wakefield, I think, now doing it. St Helens launched one, and I think they've only played one game.
Wigan just seem to be playing Wakefield every other week, don't they?
Yeah, I know. We've got Halifax tonight or tomorrow. Playing a lot of these championship clubs. It does my head in, doesn't it? Yeah, do you know what? I mean, I don't know whether I could say another Super League club does this, but it would be nice occasionally. I mean, that's the thing. If there's one, I guess, constant criticism that you could have of Ian Lenigan, it's that secrecy bit, isn't it? You know, that bit of, you know, you're asking me about Sam Tomkins, but I wish sometimes you could ask them, who are a bit more open about it. And look, there might be good reasons why we can't talk about these kind of things. Certainly with Zach Hardacre, you can imagine why nothing's going to happen on that front until the UCAD investigation's finished. You know, you wouldn't want Ian Lenigan to be like Marwan Kukash or Derek Beaumont, would you?
No, absolutely.
But, I mean, you wouldn't want him. Yeah. You wouldn't want him that open. But yeah, it would be nice if we knew that sometimes.
I mean, I guess, you know, one thing that we mentioned before, and we've mentioned numerous times, is that interview that Chris Rodlinski did with yourself at the start of the season.
Yeah.
In hindsight, it put everything into place, and sometimes that's all what it takes, isn't it?
Yeah, you know what? We got a load of raps from it, and I was really pleased he did that. Originally, I wanted Ian to do it, and I wanted him to do it in October, actually, because it was his 10th year, anniversary of his 10 years in charge of Wigan. And he said, I'm not going to, he said then he wasn't going to give interviews because of his involvement in the Super League structure and the rest of it. And I respect that. It would have been nice to mark his milestone, but there you go. But yeah, you're right. At the start of the year, Chris did that. And yeah, if we could get more of those, the better. Sean Wayne's done a couple too as well. I'll tell you, in terms of answering not so much insightful questions like that, but more quirky ones, you know, and they're always good value. They're always good value.
But I did say I would give the last word to Matt, but Stuart's just asked a really good question. Who do you want in the Challenge Cup draw in the morning?
I think with Josh Charnley down there. I think Josh Charnley's down there, isn't he, for it?
Yes, he is. Yeah, and he's going to draw Warrington Wigan.
It's written in the stars, isn't it? It's written in the stars. And Chris Evans is a Warrington fan too.
A Whitehaven in it, or is it Workington? I think Whitehaven are in the draw. There's only one of the Cumbrian teams. I think Stuart does live in Cumbria, so I'm not just saying that to sort of please Stuart, but I would like a Whitehaven away, maybe a Featherstone away. You just want to avoid the Saints away in the first game, don't you? Or Leeds away, I guess. But yeah, what you saying?
I like that logic, but I also think you're going to win it. You know, if we're going to win it, let's do it now. Let's beat either. You know, let's have Saints first up, or I'd love to see that.
Saints Wigan final this year. You know, we've obviously not had.
You reckon?
We've not had one for a long time. I would just love that big game at Wembley. I was disappointed with the crowds last year at Wembley when I went. It just didn't feel the same as it did particularly in 2011.
It was interesting then, Dave. I was with Dave Woods last week doing back chat, and he was saying that the BBC wanted the Challenge Cup final brought forward to a June slot, and it's for clubs who are opposed to it, which is interesting because I thought, and I think a lot of people always thought it was the other way, that it was the BBC who wanted that August bank holiday weekend slot. But I think the Challenge Cup's great. I just think I can't help wonder with Josh Charnley being down there, it's written in the stars that he's going to pull out a Wigan Warrington Challenge Cup.
I suppose that would be.
I know last year's was a terrific game as well, wasn't it? So if you could, a lot to live up to.
Yeah, Phil's just put on there. It'd be good to see Saints draw Hull. Yeah, if we could send Saints to Leeds away or something, that would be a good start. And
Saints to Headingley would be a good start. Yeah, we sit back and play, like you say, play Featherstone or visit Catalan and come over here. The
interesting draw would obviously be a team that draws Toronto away. I would assume that they would play the other way around like they did at Barrow last week. So if Wigan drew Toronto away, you would imagine that would be played at the DW. But
hang on, I say that though, but their first game is Swinton. Second week of because they play
the week after, isn't it?
Yeah, they play the week after, don't they, at home?
Yeah. But you can. Yeah. I saw somebody put.
But it's not at home, though. I don't think, is it? It's at another ground because the pitch isn't quite ready. So maybe it was still favour them to play over in England.
I did see somebody put on the other day, sort of tongue in cheek, about if Wigan did draw Toronto at home, you can imagine Wigan being the club that they are to say, no, it's all right, we will find a ground in Toronto. Yes. We will go over there and play. But, you know,
do you know what? Maybe not for this round because I think there's too short a gap between it. But you know what? If they got him in the next round at their place, we would definitely not put it past him, would you?
No.
It would just be. It would, and I can't wait. Even if it's over here, I'm just looking forward to Wigan's first game against Toronto. I think it'd be brilliant. That
should be absolutely fantastic. And obviously they're over here in month's time to play Toulouse in Newcastle as well. So Wigan fans that are going to that game can get probably the first taste of Toronto and Toulouse.
Toulouse, have they got Eddie Hitman Eddie there? Pettibone, is he?
Pettibone, yeah, he got sent off against Leeds, didn't he? Yeah, he's sort of.
That's right.
Yeah, and then he came back and won. Phil, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and I guess everybody keep an eye on Wigan Today's website for all the latest, particularly on the contract situations that are going on. But yeah, thank you so much again, Phil, for joining us.
Sure, anytime, mate. Just give us a shout. Cheers.
Thanks a lot, Phil. See you.